The chair still faces the garden, not the front door, not the TV, not even the kitchen. I sit there every morning with a cup of coffee that grows cold in my hand. The air smells of earth and rain. A few sparrows chase each other over the fence, as if they own the place. The house is mine. Every stone of it was paid for with my years of work. I carried bricks when my back was strong. I managed contracts when my eyes were sharp. This roof was never a gift. It was built by sweat and long nights. Elizabeth used to sit in the chair across from mine. She liked to watch the roses grow wild and lean across the path. When she passed 3 years ago, the chair stayed empty. I left it facing the garden because it seemed wrong to turn it away. That chair is the only thing in this house that does not change. My daughter Anna stopped visiting after the funeral. At first I excused it. She was grieving. She was married to Eric and they were busy with their new lives. I thought time would bring her back to me. But time is a thief. It takes more than it gives. Calls became rare. Visits disappeared. What remained were requests. Dad, we need help with the mortgage. Dad, Eric lost his job. Dad, we want to renovate the kitchen. I gave her money each time. I told myself this was love. I told myself Elizabeth would want me to support her. I never thought she would see my giving as weakness. 2 months ago, Anna came with Eric. They did not sit long. She walked through the house as if it was already hers. She touched the banister. She opened the cupboards. She looked at me with a smile I had never seen before. It was not the smile of a daughter. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision. Dad, this house is too big for you. You should let us have it. I thought she was joking. I laughed and waited for her to laugh too. She did not. Eric stood behind her with his arms folded as if guarding a prize. It makes sense, Dad. You are alone. We are starting a family. We need space. You can move to an apartment. It will be easier for you. Her words sliced through me. Every memory of bedtime stories, every memory of holding her hand on her first day of school, every promise Elizabeth and I made to raise her with care, all of it shook inside me. She was not asking. She was telling me. I stayed quiet. Silence can hide pain. Silence can buy time. I nodded slowly and said we will talk about it later. Her eyes brightened as if victory was near. Eric smiled for the first time that evening. That night I walked through every room. I touched the walls. I touched the pictures. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom where Elizabeth took her last breath. My daughter wanted to erase me from my own life. She wanted to take the only place where I still felt her mother's presence. The chair still faced the garden the next morning. I sat in it with my cold coffee. I thought about the years of work. I thought about Elizabeth. I thought about Anna's voice, sharp and commanding. The word surrender rang in my head. No. The word came out loud. The sparrows flew from the fence. My voice shook the morning air. No, I would not surrender. But how does a father fight his own child? How does a man defend what is his without destroying what is left of love? I did not know the answer then. I only knew one thing. My daughter thought I would surrender my house. She was wrong. And I would show her in a way she could never forget. The garden looked calm that morning, but inside me nothing was calm. I sat in the same chair. I drank the same coffee. The silence was heavy. Elizabeth's photo rested on the small table beside me. I touched the frame with my fingertips. Her smile in that picture had always given me strength. That morning I asked her quietly, "What would you have me do?" The phone rang before the answer could come. It was Anna. Her voice was bright and businesslike. Dad, Eric, and I talked. We decided you should give us the house by the end of the month. We already spoke to a broker about apartments for you. 1 bedroom will be enough. I held the phone tighter. The wood of the chair creaked beneath me. Give us the house, as if it was hers already. As if 30 years of work and memory had no weight. Anna, I said slowly. This is my house. Your mother and I built our life here. Her voice turned sharp. You are being selfish. We need it more than you. Selfish. The word struck like a stone. For years I had given her everything she asked for. Money for school, money for her wedding, money for the car she drives. I never called her selfish. I never counted the cost. Now she was calling me selfish for holding on to my own roof. She ended the call quickly. I sat in the chair long after the line went dead. My hands shook. My chest burned. But beneath the hurt, something else was rising. It was not weakness. It was not surrender. It was anger. 3 nights later, she came, again with Eric. They did not knock. They walked in as if the door belonged to them. Anna looked around the living room with approval. "This will be the nursery," she said. Eric nodded. He ran his hand along the wall as if testing its strength. I stayed quiet. I wanted to see how far they would go. Anna spoke of paint colors. Eric spoke of moving furniture. They were planning their future inside my house while I stood silent in my own doorway. Finally, I asked, "What makes you think I will leave?" Anna turned to me with a look I had never seen. It was the look of someone who believed victory was certain. "Because you always give in, Dad. You always say yes." Her words cut deeper than any knife. In that moment, I saw myself through her eyes. A man who bent so often that she no longer believed I could stand. She had mistaken patience for weakness. She had mistaken love for surrender. Eric smiled faintly. "You should rest in a small place," he said. "We will take care of this house." I looked at them both. I saw no shame in their eyes. Only hunger. Hunger for space. Hunger for ownership. Hunger that cared nothing for the years I had lived here. That night after they left, I walked through the house again. I placed my hand on the banister. I ran my palm across the kitchen table. I touched the bedroom door. Every part of the house held Elizabeth's presence. Every wall carried the echo of our life. I whispered to the silence. "They think I will surrender. But this house is not theirs." In my study, I opened an old drawer. Inside were papers, deeds, receipts, proof of every sacrifice, proof that the house was mine. I spread them on the desk and stared at them under the lamp. My breath slowed. My mind cleared. Elizabeth's photo on the desk seemed to watch me. Her eyes reminded me of strength. She would not want me to be weak. She would not want me to be silent. I placed my hand flat on the deed. This fight has begun. The next week felt like a storm that would not pass. Anna sent messages every day. Each one was sharper than the last. "Dad, when will you decide?" "Dad." We already spoke to movers. Dad stopped being stubborn. I did not answer. Silence can be louder than words. But the silence cut me as well. Each message was a nail in a coffin she was building for our bond. On Friday evening, I heard a car in the driveway. When I looked out the window, I saw Anna and Eric again. They stepped out with folders in their hands. Eric carried a leather briefcase. They looked like agents coming to close a deal. They entered without waiting for me to open the door. Anna spread the papers on the dining table. "These are forms," she said. "We found a lawyer who can help with the transfer. If you sign now, it will be smooth." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. Eric placed a pen beside the papers. He stood back with his arms folded. I sat down slowly. I read the top page. Transfer of ownership. My name was printed there beside blank lines. Spaces where my signature was expected. Spaces where I was supposed to surrender my life. I looked up at Anna. "Do you know what you are asking me to do?" She sighed as if I was a child. "You are old, Dad. You do not need this house. Think of us. Think of our future. Old." The word echoed in the walls. Elizabeth and I had dreamed of growing old here together. Now my daughter used that same word to erase me from the dream. Eric spoke for the first time. "You will be comfortable in a smaller place. We will handle this one." I closed the folder. My hands did not shake now. My voice was steady. "I will not sign." Anna's face twisted. Her voice rose. "You cannot be serious." "I am very serious." She slammed her hand on the table. "All these years we supported you after Mom died. We took care of you. Now you owe us this." The lie burned. Supported me. She had taken from me. I had given to her. The record was clear. My bank statements knew the truth even if she denied it. I stood up. My chair scraped the floor. This house is mine. It will remain mine until the day I die. Eric stepped forward. His shadow loomed over me. He tried to use his height as power. "Do not make this ugly," he said. I looked straight into his eyes. "It is already ugly." Anna pulled the folder back with shaking hands, her eyes filled with anger that looked almost like hatred. "Fine," she said. "If you want to fight, you will have one." They left with the papers still unsigned. The door closed behind them with a sharp sound that rang through the house like a warning. A bell. That night I sat again in my chair by the garden. The roses bent in the wind. The air smelled of soil and rain. Elizabeth's empty chair faced me like a silent witness. I spoke aloud to her memory. She is not the little girl we raised. She is not the child who once cried in my arms. She is a woman who sees me as an obstacle. She has chosen greed over love. My voice shook, but I kept speaking. I cannot change her heart, but I can defend what is mine. The stars above the garden flickered like cold eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something awaken in me. It was not just anger. It was strength. The kind of strength I thought I had lost when Elizabeth died. Anna thought I would bend. She thought I would sign away my life. She thought wrong. The days that followed were heavy. Silence in the house was no longer calm. It was sharp and filled with echoes of Anna's voice. My sleep grew thin. Each night I walked from room to room as if to guard them. I touched the walls like a soldier checking a fortress. The phone rang less, but when it did, the words were cruel. Anna's voice had lost all softness. "Dad, you are being unreasonable. Dad, you are forcing us to take action. Dad, if you love me, you will not make this hard." I did not answer most of her calls. When I did, my words were short. "This house is mine. I will not leave." The silence after those words was always long and bitter. One evening, as I sat in the garden chair, I saw Eric's car pull up again. He came alone this time. He walked with the stride of a man who thought he could claim victory by force of will. He stopped at the edge of the path and crossed his arms. "You are making a mistake," he said. "This house is not yours," I answered. He smirked. "It will be. Anna is determined. She always gets what she wants." I studied his face. His confidence was not strength. It was greed wearing armor. He wanted what he did not earn. He thought persistence was power. I said nothing more. Silence can be stronger than argument. After a moment, he shook his head and walked back to his car. His footsteps on the gravel sounded like a warning. That night, I felt the weight of loneliness more than ever. Elizabeth's photo stared back at me from the table. I whispered to her, "Am I wrong to fight our daughter? Am I cruel for protecting what we built?" The wind outside answered with a low moan. The house creaked in the dark. No human voice could guide me. Only my own resolve. The next morning, I went into my study. I opened the drawer again. I looked at the deed. My name printed clear. My signature inked bold. This was my proof. This was my shield. But paper alone would not stop Anna. She was already planning her next move. That afternoon, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a letter from a lawyer I did not know. The words were sharp and official. Transfer of property. Request for voluntary agreement. Failure to comply may result in legal action. I read it twice. The paper shook in my hands. My own daughter had hired a lawyer against me. I sat in my chair by the garden and stared at the roses. Their petals moved in the breeze. They looked fragile, yet they held against the wind. I told myself I must do the same. But pain pressed heavy on me. I remembered Anna as a child. She once ran through this very garden barefoot. She once hugged me with arms too small to reach around my waist. She once cried when I was late to pick her up from school. How had that child become this woman who sent lawyers to my door? Grief rose in me like a tide. For 3 nights I barely ate. My chest ached. My eyes stayed wet. The betrayal was not just about the house. It was about love turned into a transaction. It was about family broken into pieces too sharp to hold. On the fourth night, I stood in the hallway. I looked at Elizabeth's portrait. My voice was low but steady. She thinks I am weak. She thinks I will give in. She has forgotten who raised her. She has forgotten the man I was before grief. I touched the wall with my palm. The house felt solid and cold. I knew then the time for quiet endurance was ending. I would not only defend my home, I would prepare the letter from Anna's lawyer. Sat on my desk like a threat that refused to move. I read it again in the morning light. The words were heavy, but I saw through them. They were not law. They were intimidation. They were my daughter's attempt to corner me. I walked to the garden and sat in the chair. The air smelled of damp earth. My coffee grew cold as it always did. For days I had felt weak and broken, but now a new thought stirred in me. If Anna wanted a battle, then she would face a battle she could not win. I stood and went back inside. The house was not just walls and wood. It was records. It was history. It was proof. I opened boxes in the study that had not been touched in years. Old files, contracts, letters. I found receipts from the day the land was bought. I found bank slips showing every payment I had made. I placed them in neat piles. Each one was a stone in the foundation of my defense. But as I searched deeper, something else appeared. A folder at the bottom of a box. Inside was a document with Elizabeth's signature. My heart beat faster as I read it. It was her will. She had written it before her illness became too strong. In it, she left everything to me. The villa, the savings, the land behind the house. All of it. Her words were clear. I leave my share of the house to my husband who built this life with me. I sank into the chair in the study. My hands trembled as I held the paper. Elizabeth's voice filled the room even though she was gone. She had trusted me to keep what we built. She had given me the shield I needed even after death. That night I slept for the first time in weeks. The next day Anna came again. She stormed into the living room with Eric at her side. She threw another envelope on the table. This time it was louder. "You cannot keep delaying," she said. "Sign the papers or we will take you to court." I did not raise my voice. I slid the envelope aside and placed the will in front of her. Her eyes scanned the page. The color drained from her face. "What is this?" she whispered. "The truth," I answered. "Your mother left everything to me, legally and completely." "You have no claim here." Eric leaned over her shoulder. His jaw tightened. He tried to speak, but no words came. The silence grew heavy. Anna slammed the paper down. "This changes nothing. You are cruel. You are forcing me to fight harder." I looked at her calmly. "You are forcing yourself." She turned and walked out with Eric. The door shook as it closed. I picked up the will again. My hands no longer trembled. The fight was not over, but the truth was now my weapon. Elizabeth had given me strength even from beyond. That evening I sat in the garden chair. The roses swayed in the breeze. I looked at Elizabeth's empty chair and whispered, "You always knew she would test me. You left me this so I would not fall. Thank you. My daughter thought I would surrender my house. Now she would learn the weight of truth." The days after showing Anna the will were quiet. Too quiet. She did not call. She did not come. Eric's car did not appear in the driveway. At first, the silence felt like peace. Then I understood it was the silence of planning. They had not given up. They were waiting for their next move. I spent my mornings in the garden chair as always, but my thoughts no longer drifted with grief. They sharpened like tools in a shed. I asked myself again and again, how do you defend a house from your own blood? How do you fight back without destroying what little remains of love? The answer came slowly. You do not wait for them to strike. You strike first. One morning, I drove into town. I walked into the office of a lawyer who had once handled my contracts. His name was Mr. Cole. His hair had gone gray, but his eyes were still sharp. When I told him the story, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Your daughter has no legal claim," he said. "The will is clear. The deed is clear. But she may try to harass you. She may try to tarnish your name. She may even claim you are unfit to live alone." Those words echoed in me. Unfit. I could already hear Anna using them. "You are old, Dad. You cannot manage this house. You should leave." Mr. Cole leaned forward. "The best defense is to secure everything now. Put the house in a trust. Put your terms in writing. No one will be able to touch it while you live." I nodded slowly. A trust. The word felt strong, unbreakable. We worked through the papers for hours. My hands ached from signing, but each stroke was a wall built higher. By the end of the day, the villa was no longer a vulnerable target. It was locked under my control. No court, no daughter, no son-in-law could take it. When I drove home, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The house looked different as I pulled into the driveway. Not fragile, not threatened, solid, safe. That night, Anna called. Her voice was sharp. "You think a piece of paper will stop me?" "No," I said calmly. "A piece of paper already has." There was silence. Then anger. "You are not the man I thought you were." I answered slowly. "No, Anna. I am not the man you thought I was." The line went dead. I sat in my chair by the garden and let the silence wash over me. The roses bent in the wind. The air was cool. For the first time since Elizabeth died, I felt control return to my hands. But revenge is not only about holding on. Revenge is about teaching a lesson that will not be forgotten. Anna and Eric needed to learn what it means to value what is theirs and not crave what is not. The plan grew inside me like a seed. I would not fight with fists. I would not shout or beg. I would use patience. I would use the truth. I would let their greed turn against them until they faced the weight of their own choices. Elizabeth's chair stood empty across from me. I looked at it and whispered, "You always believe justice does not need fire. It only needs time. I will. Give it time. And when the time comes, my daughter will see that her father is not weak. The papers for the trust were signed. The villa was locked under my control. Yet I knew Anna and Eric would not stop. Greed does not sleep. It grows restless when it is denied. 2 weeks later, I heard from a neighbor that Anna and Eric were telling people in town the house would soon be theirs. They spoke as if I was already gone. They told friends they would host dinners here. They even promised one family they could use the garden for a wedding next summer. I smiled when I heard this. They were building castles in the air, castles that would collapse the moment they touched the ground. But I stayed silent. Silence was my ally now. One evening, Anna came alone. She walked into the house with a face that looked both angry and tired. She sat at the table without asking, "Dad, why are you doing this? Why are you making things so hard?" I looked at her carefully. "You think this house is your future. It is not. Your future is in your own hands, not in mine." Her eyes burned. "You have always loved this place more than me." Her words stabbed, but I did not flinch. I answered slowly. "I love this place because it is the proof of my life with your mother. I love you because you are my daughter. But love does not mean surrender." She stood up sharply. "You will regret this." Then she left without another word. The next morning, I received another letter. This one was not from a lawyer. It was from the bank. Someone had tried to use my name to apply for a loan against the house. My hands tightened around the paper. I knew it was Eric. I drove straight to the bank. I showed them the trust papers. I showed them the deed. The manager apologized again and again. He promised the attempt would be reported. He promised it would never succeed. When I returned home, I sat in the garden chair. My anger burned, but I let it cool into resolve. They had crossed from asking to stealing. They were ready to forge and lie to take what was not theirs. That night, I wrote a letter of my own. Not to Anna, not to Eric, but to the same lawyer who had once defended me in business disputes. I asked him to prepare documents that would expose any fraudulent attempt tied to my name. I asked him to protect my estate even after I was gone. I sealed the envelope and placed it on the desk. Then I sat back in the chair and stared at Elizabeth's photo. Anna thought she was clever. Eric thought he was stronger. But the law was on my side. Time was on my side. And soon their own actions would trap them. The shocking twist was not that they betrayed me. The shocking twist would be when they realized their betrayal had already destroyed them. The roses in the garden swayed in the night wind. I whispered to them as if they could carry the words to Elizabeth. They are digging their own grave, and I will not stop them. The day came sooner than I expected. A knock at the door in the late afternoon. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood outside. Behind them stood Anna and Eric. One of the officers spoke firmly. "Sir, we received a report that you are not fit to live alone. We were asked to check your condition and safety." I looked at Anna. Her face was calm, but her eyes glittered with cold triumph. Eric stood tall behind her with a smug smile. They thought this was their final move. I invited the officers inside. They looked around this living room. They asked if I could cook for myself. I led them to the kitchen. Bread, vegetables, freshly cooked stew on the stove. They asked if I could take my medicines on time. I opened the cabinet and showed them the neatly arranged bottles with dates marked. One officer leaned closer. "Sir, do you have family nearby?" I looked straight at Anna. "Yes, I do. But family is not always what it seems." The officers nodded. They spoke quietly to each other. Then they turned to Anna and Eric. "We see no reason for concern. This man is capable. He is safe. This matter is closed." Anna's face darkened. Eric muttered something under his breath. The officers left. My daughter and her husband remained standing in the hall. Anna hissed. "You embarrassed me," I answered calmly. "No, Anna. You embarrassed yourself." Eric stepped forward. "You cannot keep fighting us forever." I held up the folder with the trust papers. "I can fight as long as it takes. And the law fights with me." For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. The smug smile faded. Anna's hands shook. "You will regret this, Dad. You will die alone in this house." Her words pierced deep, but I stood firm. Better alone in honesty than surrounded by greed. They stormed out without another word. The sound of their car leaving tore through the air. That night, I sat in the garden chair. My body felt tired, but my spirit was steady. I whispered to Elizabeth's empty chair. They tried to break me with lies. They tried to strip me of dignity. But now the law knows the truth. The next morning, I received a call from Mr. Cole. He told me the bank had filed a report of attempted fraud. Eric's name was tied to the application. The police were investigating. I closed my eyes and let out a long breath. The trap had sprung. I had not needed to strike them down. They had struck themselves with their own greed. That evening, the doorbell rang again. When I opened it, Anna stood alone. Her face was pale. Her voice was low. "Dad, they are questioning Eric. They may charge him. What have you done?" I looked at her with calm eyes. "I did not do this, Anna. He did it to himself." She trembled. "You could help him. You could tell them not to press charges." I shook my head slowly. "No. The time for me to shield you is over." Her eyes filled with tears. For a moment I saw the little girl she once was. But the moment passed and she turned away. When the door closed behind her, I sank into my chair by the garden. The roses swayed gently as if applauding. The revenge was not fire or fury. It was patience. It was truth. It was letting them destroy themselves. Anna thought I would surrender my house. Instead, she may lose her husband. The news spread quickly. Eric was called to the police station again and again. The loan application with my forged signature was clear evidence. His handwriting. His attempt to pose as me. The bank refused to protect him. The investigation grew stronger each day. Anna stopped calling, but I could feel her anger even in silence. A storm always gathers before it breaks. One evening, she appeared at the door without warning. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She stepped inside and looked around the house as if she was seeing it for the first time. The place she had wanted so badly now seemed to frighten her. "Dad," she said softly, "they may put Eric in prison." I sat in my chair by the garden window. I did not rise. "You chose him, Anna. You chose his path over your own blood." She bit her lip. "I thought you would always forgive. I thought you would bend like before." I shook my head. "Bending is not love when it breaks what is right." Her voice cracked. "Help him, Dad? Please." I leaned forward. "Tell me why I should." She stared at me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Because I am your daughter." The words stung. She was my daughter. But she had treated me like a stranger. She had tried to erase me from my own life. I spoke slowly. "You are my daughter. That will never change. But love cannot erase betrayal. You chose greed over family. You chose lies over truth. And now you are seeing the price." She covered her face with her hands. For the first time, I saw not anger but fear. At that moment, Eric's car pulled into the driveway. He rushed inside with wild eyes. His shirt was wrinkled. His voice was sharp. "This is your fault, old man. If you had signed, none of this would have happened." I rose from the chair at last. My voice was calm. "No, Eric. If I had signed, I would have lost everything. You lost because you were greedy." He stepped closer, his fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might strike me. Anna grabbed his arm. "Eric, stop. Please." His anger broke into silence. He looked around the room, then stormed out again, slamming the door. Anna sank into a chair, her face in her hands. Her body shook, with sobs. "Dad, I made a mistake." I watched her cry. My heart ached, but my voice stayed steady. Mistakes can be forgiven. Betrayal cannot. The air in the room felt heavy. The house itself seemed to breathe with me. The walls that once heard Anna's demands now heard her sobs. The floor that once shook with Eric's arrogance now stood firm under my feet. At last I spoke again. "You both thought I would surrender. You thought I was weak, but this house is not just wood and stone. It is my life. It is your mother's memory. It cannot be stolen." Anna looked up through her tears. "What will happen to us?" I turned back toward the garden window. "That is not my choice, Anna. That is the path you made with him." The roses outside bent in the evening wind. Their petals glowed red in the fading light. They looked like flames burning against the dark. And I whispered to Elizabeth's chair. They wanted to take our home. Now they are losing theirs. The morning was quiet. The sun rose over the garden and the roses caught its light. I sat in my chair with coffee warm in my hand for once. The house felt different. Not threatened. Not under siege. At peace. A week had passed since Anna's visit. News came from the police that Eric would face charges: fraud, forgery, attempted theft. The weight of the law was on his shoulders. Anna came once more. She did not storm in this time. She knocked. She stood at the door waiting like a guest. When I opened it, she looked smaller than before. Her eyes were swollen from nights of crying. "Dad," she whispered, "I do not know what to do." I let her in. She walked slowly through the living room. She touched the wall as if it no longer belonged to her dreams but to her memories. She sat at the table with her hands folded like a child waiting for judgment. I poured her tea. She stared into the cup without drinking. Finally, she spoke. "I thought I was strong. I thought Eric and I could take what we wanted, but we lost everything." I nodded. Strength is not taking Anna. Strength is keeping what is right even when it is hard. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Can you forgive me?" I looked at her carefully. Forgiveness is not a word. It is change. If you choose greed again, there will be no forgiveness left. She lowered her head. "I understand." Silence filled the house. It was not sharp like before. It was heavy, but healing. For the first time in many months, I saw a shadow of the daughter I once knew. That evening after she left, I walked through the house one last time with a new heart. I touched the banister. I ran my hand across the kitchen table. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom where Elizabeth once breathed her last. Nothing had been taken from me. Nothing had been surrendered. I returned to the garden chair. Elizabeth's chair stood across from me, still facing the roses. I whispered to her memory. They tried to break me, but you gave me strength. They thought I would surrender, but I stood firm. And now the lesson is theirs to carry. The air grew cooler as night came. The sparrows flew over the fence to rest. I closed my eyes. My daughter thought I would surrender my house. Instead, she lost hers. The villa stood quiet and strong, and so did I.